Did the Las Vegas Aces beat the Indiana Fever, or did the referees do it for them? When A'ja Wilson shoots 26 free throws during the entire series, while her opponent, Aliyah Boston, the league's best post defender and someone known to always attack the paint on offense, shoots 0 in the first 2 games and only 17 total, you have to ask if this was competition or manipulation. In this video, we're exposing Wilson's entire stat sheet, free throws, the fouls, the missed calls, and the bizarre whistles that turned a legendary Fever fight into a headline about officiating controversy. You'll see why fans are calling this series stolen rather than won. Stick around, as what Aliyah Boston really said about the rigged series will shock you. How does one star player get a different rulebook than everyone else on the floor? That's the question that hung over this entire semifinal series, because when you go through the numbers between A'ja Wilson and Aliyah Boston, the pattern stops looking like random chance and starts looking intentional. During 5 games, Wilson marched to the free throw line 26 times. Boston, despite banging in the post and drawing contact every single night, only made it there 17 total. And almost all of that came in one game, Game 4, when the Aces were hacking anyone who touched the ball in the final minutes, just to extend time. Those freebies padded her count, but without them, the gap between the two stars would be an embarrassment to explain. It was a physical game, you know. I think there's a double standard in how people get their calls. I think Aliyah Boston is the worst officiated and post player in the league. She never gets a call. And you know, there's a double standard there. Certainly. But, you know, again, if it's gonna be physical and you're gonna allow us to be physical, then allow both teams to be physical. If you're gonna call the holds and you're gonna call the chucks, and you're gonna then call it both ways. So, I mean, I think that we've been pretty consistent in what we're asking for. And I didn't feel like it was consistent. Now go back to games 1 and 2. The Fever's centerpiece, Aliyah Boston, whose entire playstyle is built on physical post-ups and finishing through defenders, didn't shoot a single free throw, not one. If you watched those games, you saw Wilson absorbing whistles for the softest touch fouls, while Boston was shoved, hit on the arms, and knocked down without so much as a glance from the referees. That can't just be chalked up to different styles of play. The ball flowed through Boston constantly. For her whistle to go completely silent through 2 consecutive games, it sounded more like selective enforcement. The foul totals only build the case. Over the 5 games, Boston got hit with 19 fouls. Wilson? Just 14. That's already strange enough when you remember who they guard. Boston defended Wilson possession after possession, while Wilson was on switches, often hiding on the Fever's wings to conserve energy. And yet the count says Boston fouled 5 more times. How? On tape, you can literally count Wilson's moving screens over and over, illegal footwork to free up Jackie Young or Chelsea Gray. Look at these moving screens. She totally destroys Lexi Hall. And guess what? They get a 3-point bucket off that play. They did call that an offense foul. Look at this one. You see how she sticks her leg out? They wonder why they get wide open layups and 3-pointers. Look at the room it makes when you send an illegal screen. That's why it's illegal. Another one, look at this. She moves over, and it's just enough time for her teammate to get a 3-pointer off. Watch how she does this. She thrusts her hips at the end. Look at, thrust her hips to get that extra space, and she gets an open layup. Like I said, 4 offensive fouls they didn't call, and they got 10 points. And this is, by one review, there were at least 37 uncalled moving screens from Wilson alone across the series. 37. That's nearly 8 per game, wiped away like they never happened. Somehow Boston sets one solid screen and it's whistled. Wilson leans half her body into defenders on pick after pick and nothing. It starts to form a one-way street. Fouls pile on Boston, whistles bail out Wilson. Boston plays defense with her hands up, takes bumps inside, and it's called against her. Wilson hooks arms on rebounds or lowers shoulders on entry plays, and the refs act blind. At what point do you stop asking whether it's just tough luck and start asking whether the officials are protecting a narrative? Is the league's chosen face getting a pass others don't receive? Because based on this series, Wilson's special whistle isn't some conspiracy theory. It's backed by the math. Well, it's hard for us to find flow when there's a foul call every 10 seconds. I mean, it just really is. You know, and then when they're at the free throw line, we can't get up and down the floor. And that's a challenge. They were much more aggressive and physical defensively. And, we didn't counter that with our off-ball actions or with our back cuts. So they took us out of our comfort zone. I mean, offense is about rhythm, it's about timing, it's about spacing. We allowed them to do that, and they kept us from doing it. Look when you stack it together. 0 free throws for Boston in the first 2 games. 17 total to Wilson's 26. 19 fouls on Boston, 14 on Wilson despite her constant illegal screens. 37 times the MVP got away with violations that could have shifted possessions. Every single layer of evidence tilts in the same direction, always helping one side and burying the other. So if statistical imbalance already screams favoritism, what happens when you drill down into the actual moments that swung Game 5? That's where the favoritism went from numbers on a stat sheet to deciding the outcome right in front of our eyes. Game 5 should have been a heavyweight battle between 2 of the league's brightest stars, but instead it turned into a 3-hour war between the Fever and the referees. When the stage was set for Aliyah Boston and A'ja Wilson to prove who could carry their team, the whistles made sure Boston never got that chance. It wasn't about who played better, it was about who the officials allowed to stay on the floor. So we got a 4-point game in the middle of the third, and this is an offensive foul, right? That's what the refs say. This is how fair the WNBA is, but this is not a moving screen. That was way worse. And not only that, it led to 3 points, and called this a foul on the Fever. This is the worst moving screen I've ever seen, and this in the 4th quarter in a 4-point game. Oh, it gets worse. In overtime, a moving screen right in front of everybody. And then guess what it leads to? A 3-pointer in a 2-point game with 2 minutes left. Another moving screen. Instead of calling this a moving screen on A'ja Wilson, they call it a foul on the Fever. I can't make this crap up. Look at this. Instead of calling a foul on Lloyd, it's a foul on the Fever. Then Alyssa Smith definitely did a movie screen on Lexi Hall, which led to 2 points. Las Vegas Aces motto, where our moving screens become your personal fouls. The first moment where everyone shook their heads came in the 3rd quarter. Boston set what looked like a textbook screen at the top of the key. Feet planted, hands tucked. Suddenly, the whistle blew. Offensive foul. Moving screen, the ref said. The cameras replayed it, and even the commentators sat in silence. No movement, no lean, just a legal basketball play erased with a phantom call. That single foul changed how Boston attacked the rest of the night because she knew her margin for error had been erased. Then came Megan Gustafson's masterpiece flop. Boston caught the ball on the block, turned into her post move, and Gustafson went flying like she'd taken a punch. Slow motion revealed barely any contact, yet the whistle favored Gustafson, and another foul landed on Boston's box score. 2 bogus fouls, each one cutting deeper into her ability to play aggressive defense or back down Wilson inside. The final straw was the rebound battle against Jackie Young late in regulation. Boston had perfect position, hands straight up, securing the board. Young nudged into her, stumbled, and somehow Boston's whistle blew again. That was foul number 6. Just like that, with the game in the balance, the Fever's anchor was out. The scoreboard read tied. The arena should have been buzzing for an all-time finish. Instead, Indiana's defense collapsed without its centerpiece, and the Aces' advantage only grew. What made it worse was how both stars played the game. Boston was contesting every shot, defending without reaching, bodying up in the paint. Wilson, on the other end, leaned almost exclusively on whistles and free throws to generate her production. Fans noticed. The outrage exploded online. Threads filled with slowed down clips. Fans circling the officiating moments that gutted Indiana's chance. Even national media called out the imbalance, pointing at those 3 specific calls that sealed Boston's fate. One of the league's best defenders fouling out this way wasn't just unfortunate, it was decisive. And still, somehow, the Aces managed to act like victims after it all. What happens when the team benefiting from every whistle suddenly decides to play victim? That's exactly what we saw after Game 4, when A'ja Wilson stood in front of the press and dropped a headline-making claim that the series was rigged. Think about that for a second. Through 4 games, Wilson had already taken 19 free throws compared to Aliyah Boston's 15. She was literally living at the line. Boston, meanwhile, kept taking hard contact on the block with almost nothing to show for it, yet somehow Wilson spun the story so that Vegas was the one getting targeted. I was looking at fouls, let's have 5. Jackie F5, Chelsea F5. And that's very interesting to me, because I said we don't foul. Yeah, we foul here and there, but that's very interesting. The irony is almost insulting. Wilson's foul total through those first 4 games sat at 12. Boston's 14. And this is while Boston was assigned the toughest defensive assignment of the entire series, guarding Wilson one-on-one nearly every possession. Wilson, on the other hand, was regularly caught setting outright illegal screens, yet the whistle stayed silent. Pretend for a moment those roles were reversed. Boston puts hands on a guard during a screen, and suddenly the ref is pointing the other way. With Wilson it was business as usual. I gotta go back and look at the tape, and it seemed like there was a lot of grabbing and holding down there. That got called one way. Anything else? I did appreciate it was a little tighter called, but tighter on both ends would have been nice. Wilson wasn't the only one framing herself as a victim either. Becky Hammond drew a technical in Game 4 for screaming about officiating. This wasn't a one-off moment. The Aces have a track record of melting down whenever playoff pressure builds. Instead of focusing on execution, they search for outside forces to blame. It's part of their identity at this point. Posture as though the league is conspiring against them, even while they collect wins aided by freebies at the charity stripe. That's what made Wilson's victim card so clearly strategic. Those words came at a perfect time, right before a decisive Game 5, and the whistles in that matchup tell the story. Boston disqualified with bogus fouls. Wilson continuing to earn trips to the line with minimal resistance. 13 free throws for Las Vegas in just 2 minutes at the end of regulation and overtime. Are we really supposed to believe Wilson's comments about bias and rigging carried no weight after that? The officials became hypersensitive to keeping Vegas comfortable, and Indiana paid the price. And while Vegas worked the refs with words, the Fever answered in a completely different way, by digging in and battling through everything stacked against them. Even with a roster cut down to the bone, the Fever forced the 2-time champs to sweat every possession. They were missing depth at nearly every spot, but somehow kept pushing the Aces deep into overtime minutes. That fight didn't come from luck or whistles, it came from players who refused to quit, even when the game and the officials kept stacking the deck against them. Yeah, I mean, this has been my best year. Seriously, I think with the people that we had in the locker room, the amount of fun that I had on the court, off the court, in the locker room, we were just talking about how central this group was and how we're always going to be connected. And honestly, that's how I feel like these women became my sisters, so quickly. And it was honestly just some of the best basketball I've had. Odyssey Sims is the first name people mention when talking about this performance. Signed late in the season on a hardship contract, she wasn't supposed to be the one leading Indiana's offense on a playoff stage. Yet by Game 5, she had poured in 27 points, carrying stretches where the Fever looked completely out of gas. It wasn't just the scoring volume, it was the timing. She hit buckets in transition, stopped scoring droughts when the Aces went on runs, and kept control of the ball when the pressure from Las Vegas ramped up. Lexi Hull added another chapter to her reputation for toughness. Playing through a nagging back injury that had limited her mobility, she still found her stroke from beyond the arc when Indiana's offense needed release valves throughout the series, as well as her hustle and defense on Jackie Young. I mean, I think that's something we can take away from the season. Obviously, ending on a loss is hard and not what you want, but I do think that we can be proud of the effort we put out there, especially in the fourth quarter, losing Aliyah, losing Kelsey. I don't even know if that was the third or fourth quarter. But 2 of our biggest stars go down and we continue to fight us into overtime. So I think that's, we're proud of ourselves. We're proud of that fight. And, it's just sad to see this group be done. Kelsey Mitchell's night was a reminder of both her brilliance and the sheer bad fortune surrounding Indiana. Before cramps forced her to leave late, she had been the dynamic scorer Vegas couldn't keep in front of. She got into the paint, pulled up from mid-range, and knocked down shots with rhythm. When she exited visibly struggling, the energy in the arena shifted. Everyone knew Mitchell leaving left a major hole. What made her effort even more powerful was the fact she gutted it out until her body gave her no other choice. She wanted to stay, but exhaustion and cramping didn't give her the option. Then there was Aliyah Boston, who had lived under foul pressure all series long. Even with phantom calls hanging over her, she still anchored the paint, fought on the glass, and guarded the league's MVP straight up. For every trip Wilson earned on whistles, Boston was grinding out possessions that rarely got rewarded. Game 5 ending with her fouled out was cruel, but it exposed the fact that Indiana only stayed alive because she kept them within reach for 4 strong quarters. Yeah, honestly, I feel like I'm super proud of myself. Just like you said, adjusting and adapting. And for me, like, a championship's always on my mind. I think no matter what happens, like, obviously you hate losing, but you kind of started with your question with just the progression, that it's been. And so, for me, obviously that's our mindset. We got a taste of it, Game 5 semifinals, and now we want the real thing, and that's obviously going to be our mindset coming in for next year. And I'm super excited going into this off season. Time to put a lot of work in. I'm just get ready to come back and win. Together, this patchwork group showed something bigger than stats. Indiana didn't fold. They forced the champions into overtime on the road with half their roster under the weight of one-sided officiating. They didn't lose because they weren't good enough. They were cheated out of the opportunity they had earned. And when it ended, Boston reminded everyone this story isn't finished. She spoke not about excuses, but about her aspirations for a championship and the team's rallying cry of, "We over me." After nights like this, those words feel less like optimism and more like a promise. The Fever didn't lose this series because they weren't good enough. They lost because the Aces needed outside help to survive. Whistles dictated the outcome, not talent. Yet despite that, Indiana left with something real. Aliyah Boston summed it up with the team's mantra, "We over me," and made it clear her eyes are already on a championship. Caitlin Clark echoed pride in what this group accomplished, even while sidelined. The future is loaded with promise. But if the WNBA wants legitimacy, it must explain why 26 free throws went one way and phantom fouls stole a season's dream.